Nobody fires a good person and gets away with it. Nobody. This is the story of a man who lost everything in one morning for doing something that took less than 60 seconds. And then, within 24 hours, his entire life flipped upside down in the most unbelievable way. No movie script, no setup, just real life, proving that sometimes the universe is paying way more attention than you think. Stay with me through this whole story because the ending is going to hit you somewhere deep. And I promise you, you're going to think about this one for a long time after this video ends. Let me paint you a picture. It's a cold Wednesday morning in a small town in Tennessee. The kind of town where everybody knows everybody. The diner on Main Street has been open since 1987, and nothing ever really happens. The sky is the color of old dishwater. The wind has that sharp bite that goes right through your jacket. And at a gas station called Ridgeway Fuel on the edge of town, a man named Daniel Harper is already on his second cup of coffee before his shift even starts. Daniel is 29 years old. Caucasian guy, lean build, dark blonde hair that he never quite gets around to cutting. Honest blue eyes that always look like they're thinking about something. He's been working at this gas station for 2.5 years. He's not unhappy, but he's also not where he thought he'd be. He had plans once. Wanted to go to community college, study business, maybe open something of his own one day. Life got in the way. Bills don't wait for dreams to catch up. He makes $14 an hour. He drives a 2009 Ford pickup that he keeps running through sheer willpower and YouTube tutorials. He sends $300 a month to his mom in Knoxville because her arthritis got bad enough that she had to cut back her hours. At the grocery store, he has roughly $500 in savings and the kind of budget where a surprise $80 car repair feels like an earthquake. But here's the thing about Daniel. He never complained. Not once. His coworker Janet, who worked the register next to him, said later in an interview, "And I want you to remember this line," she said. Daniel was the kind of person who made a rough day feel lighter just by showing up. That Wednesday morning, at 8:47 a.m., a car pulled into Ridgeway Fuel. It was a Ford Escape that had clearly seen better decades. Faded red paint, a crack running across the bottom of the windshield, a child's drawing of a sun stuck to the rear window with tape, the edges curling up from years of heat. Behind the wheel was a woman named Sandra Collins.
Sandra was 34. She had the kind of face that was naturally pretty but carried the weight of someone who hadn't slept a full night in months. Light brown hair pulled back into a quick ponytail. Blue-gray eyes that were red around the edges. She was wearing a V-neck burgundy top, slim dark jeans, and a jacket with a broken zipper she kept holding closed with her hand. She had 2 kids, a 6-year-old boy named Tyler and a 4-year-old girl named Ava, buckled in the back seat. Tyler was holding a book. Ava was asleep with her head tilted against the window. Sandra got out, went to the pump, and tapped her card. Nothing. She tried again. The screen blinked, transaction declined. She stood there a second. Closed her eyes. Took a breath. Then she came inside. She walked up to Daniel at the register and said, quietly, so nobody else in the store could hear, "I'm really sorry to ask this. I have $18 cash. My card isn't going through. I just need enough gas to get my kids to school and get to work. I can't lose this job. Is there any way you can help me?" Her voice didn't crack. She wasn't making a scene. She was just asking. The way people ask when they're desperate but still have dignity and they're holding both things at the same time. Daniel looked at her. He looked at the kids through the glass, Tyler with his book, Ava sleeping. He looked back at Sandra. He said, "How much do you need?" She said, honestly, "Maybe $40 would get me through the week." Daniel was quiet for exactly 1 second. Then he said, "Go pump. I'll take care of it." She looked at him like he'd just spoken in a different language. "I can't let you do that." He said, "You're not letting me. I'm choosing to. Go take care of your kids." Sandra pumped $43 worth of gas. She came back inside, handed Daniel her $18, and he took it. The remaining $25 came straight out of his own wallet. His own money. from a man who had $500 in savings and $300 going to his mom at the end of the week. Sandra's eyes filled up. She said thank you about 7 times. He just waved it off like it was nothing. The way genuinely good people always do. Like kindness is just a normal thing and not something that deserves a parade. She got back in the Escape. The car with the sun drawing in the back window pulled out of the parking lot. Daniel watched it go and then turned back to his register. 20 minutes later, his manager walked out of the back office. His name was Frank Dillon. Mid-50s, gray mustache, companyman through and through. Frank wasn't cruel. But Frank ran a tight ship and had zero tolerance for what he called financial irregularities. Someone, and to this day, nobody knows exactly who, had seen what Daniel did and said something to Frank. Frank pulled Daniel aside and said, I saw what happened this morning. You gave away product without authorization. That's theft from the company. I don't have a choice here, Daniel.
Daniel didn't argue. He didn't beg. He didn't say, do you know how little I make? Or, do you know I'm helping my sick mom? Or any of the 10,000 things he could have said. He just nodded, took off his name badge, set it on Frank's desk, and said simply, I'd make the same call again. He walked out. He sat in his Ford pickup in the parking lot for about 15 minutes. He called his mom. He told her what happened. She cried. He told her not to. He said something would work out. He didn't fully believe it in that moment. But he said it anyway because that's what you say to your mom. Then he drove home to his apartment, made a sandwich, and started updating his resume. Now here is where this story stops being ordinary. About 40 miles away, in the city of Nashville, a man named William Carr was finishing a breakfast meeting at a hotel restaurant. William was 58 years old. White hair kept neat, square jaw. The kind of man who fills a room without trying. He had started his first business at 26 with a $3,000 loan from his uncle and had built a supply chain company over 30 years that now employed over 400 people across 4 states. He was serious about business, but he was equally serious about people. William had a personal rule, one he'd kept for over 20 years. Every quarter, he would ask his executive assistant, a sharp woman named Carol, to find him one story. Not a viral internet story. A real, quiet, local story of somebody doing something good when they didn't have to. William believed, deeply believed, that how you treat people when there's nothing in it for you is the truest measure of character. And he hired based on character above almost everything else. Carol lived in the same small Tennessee town as Daniel. She had been in Ridgeway Fuel that Wednesday morning picking up coffee. She saw the whole thing. She saw Sandra ask. She saw Daniel pull money from his own wallet. She saw Frank pull Daniel aside. And when she heard through a neighbor that evening that Daniel had been let go, she drove straight back to her laptop and wrote William a 3-paragraph email with the subject line, Found one. William read it at 6 a.m. the next morning. He read it twice. Then he called Carol and said 4 words, set up a meeting. Carol found Daniel through the gas station's local listing and a quick neighborhood search. By 10 a.m. Thursday morning, less than 24 hours after, Daniel had walked out of Ridgeway Fuel for the last time. There was a knock on his apartment door. Daniel opened the door. There was Carol, professional coat, warm smile, and parked on the street behind her, gleaming silver in the morning sun, was a Rolls Royce that looked like it belonged in a different dimension from Daniel's neighborhood. Daniel literally looked at the car, then at Carol, then back at the car. Is this the right address? He said. Carol smiled. If you're Daniel Harper, yes it is. They drove to Nashville, to a real office building with a lobby that had actual art on the walls. Daniel sat in a chair across from William Carr and told the whole story plainly. The way he'd told his mom, Sandra, the kids, the $25, the name badge on Frank's desk. William listened without moving. When Daniel finished, William leaned back and said, What did you feel when you walked out of there? Daniel thought about it. Honestly, at peace. I knew I'd done the right thing, even if it cost me. William was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I built my company on one belief. That the people who do the right thing when nobody's watching, when it actually costs them something, are the rarest people on earth. And those are the only people I want around me. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a job offer. Operations coordinator at Car Supply Group. A real role. A role Daniel was genuinely qualified for. 2.5 years of inventory management, shift coordination, vendor interaction. All things he'd been doing at Ridgeway Fuel without a title that reflected any of it. The salary was $54,000 a year. Daniel had been making just under $30,000. He stared at the paper. He didn't speak for what felt like a full minute. Then William added one more thing. He reached into his jacket and placed an envelope on top of the folder. Inside was a personal check, not from the company, from William himself. Enough to cover 3 months of Daniel's mother's expenses. While she continued to recover, Daniel looked up. His eyes were wet, and he wasn't trying to hide it. He said, "I don't understand why you're doing this." William said, "Because 32 years ago, a stranger helped me when I had nothing and told me to pay it forward. I'm still paying. And now, one day, so will you." Daniel Harper started at Car Supply Group the following Monday. He wore a new shirt. He showed up 15 minutes early. His co-workers noticed within the first week that he was the kind of person who remembered people's names after one conversation, who stayed late without being asked, who made the job feel a little less like a job. 3 weeks later, on a Saturday afternoon, Daniel was at a grocery store near his apartment when he turned down an aisle and almost walked directly into Sandra Collins. She had Tyler by the hand. Ava was in the cart eating a cracker. Sandra looked up and went completely still. They stood in the middle of the cereal aisle like two people who had been looking for each other. Without knowing it, Sandra said, "I never got to properly thank you. I thought about going back to the station, but I didn't know how to." She stopped. "I heard they fired you. Because of me." Daniel shook his head. "Not because of you. Because I chose to do something. That's different. Don't carry that." She had tears going before she could stop them. Tyler looked up at his mom and then at Daniel with the serious face that 6-year-old boys get when they're trying to understand adult things. Daniel told her everything. The Rolls Royce. William. The job. His mom's expenses covered. All of it. Sandra put her hand over her mouth. Ava held up her cracker to Daniel like an offering. He took it. He pretended to eat it. Tyler laughed. And in the middle of a grocery store in a small Tennessee town, something that had started with a $25 act of kindness finished its circle right there in the cereal aisle. Sandra got his number. A few months later, when Car Supply Group posted an opening for an administrative assistant, Daniel sent her name directly to Carol. Sandra interviewed. Sandra got the job. She makes more now than she ever has. Her card doesn't decline anymore. And her kids still have that sun drawing in the back window of the Escape. Except the tape is fresh now. Here is what I need you to understand before you click away. Daniel Harper did not give Sandra that $25 because he thought a Rolls Royce was coming. He did it because she had 2 kids in the back of a car with a cracked windshield and a broken look in her eyes, and he had $25 and a beating heart. That was the whole math of it. Studies on human psychology actually show that people who regularly perform acts of generosity, even small ones, report significantly higher levels of life satisfaction and tend to build stronger, more loyal social networks over time. In other words, being genuinely kind is not just morally right. It is practically one of the smartest things a human being can do. But Daniel didn't know any of that. He just knew what his gut told him. And his gut said, help her. He lost a job. For one day. And then he gained a life that matched who he actually was. The world didn't reward Daniel because he was lucky. It rewarded him because he was consistent. Because when the moment came, a cold Wednesday morning with nobody important watching and $25 he couldn't really spare, he didn't flinch. He didn't calculate. He just acted like the person he was. And that is the most important sentence in this entire video. You never know what your $25 moment looks like until it's standing in front of you. It might not be money. It might be time. It might be a word. It might be choosing not to walk away when walking away would be the easier thing. But your moment is coming. Everyone gets one. Maybe more than one. The only question is, when yours arrives, who are you going to be? Daniel Harper knew the answer before the question even finished forming. That's why the Rolls Royce showed up. That's why his mom stopped worrying. That's why Sandra's kids still have their son in the window. Do the right thing, even when it costs you. Especially when it costs you. Because the version of you that pays that price is the version of you that deserves everything that comes next.